Hello, my name is Bo Wright, and today I will be talking to you about globalization and the various complexities that entails. I would like to add as an American, a typical ethnocentric American that thinks America is the best and brightest place in the world. I have to say that before globalization was the term, us Americans, we used to define it as Americanization, right? Globalization is a more recent word that's been more inclusive, say, to other countries. But it is, I have to say, America that is a huge engine in the global economy. There is a saying amongst economists that when the United States economy catches a cold, that the rest of the world sneezes. Well, that's just because the U.S. economy is so intertwined with so many different countries. I will touch on that briefly, how that is happening in just a moment. But to start, I'd just like to break down globalization in three main categories, that being the first most important, I believe, is economical, and the reason why we've seen such a rapid increase of globalization. I mean, just the sheer money involved in trade and all that stuff amongst countries is just huge. So that is just one reason. And then we have political. There's always political incentives in why we want a more cohesive, unified world, and having a more centralized, I don't want to say, because I'm a Christian, I don't want to say one world government, but unfortunately that is the case. I will bring in my personal Christian perspective that I do believe that the world is ultimately temporary, and that we're not here forever. And the governments of this world, they do not have the average person's best interest at heart. Even the United States, call me a conspiracist, whatever you want, but government inherently is evil. No, the more power, people abuse power. We are lucky to live at least for myself, living in America, I'm very fortunate and very grateful to live in a country that has our political system with checks and balances and many other things that allow us the freedom to criticize our own government and to vote people out that we don't like. I do enjoy that. And so I digress. The third pillar is cultural. So we have economical, political, and cultural. These are the main pillars of the main implications that rest and that set the foundation for globalization. People like to mix and misconstrue technology with these three pillars, but really technology is almost what makes globalization possible. So without technology, you wouldn't have globalization. So economics, politics, and culture are the things that are implicated. So those are things that are variables in that change, right? So technology is just always increasing. We're always getting more technologically advanced. So that's kind of a given. A couple ways that we have benefited through globalization would be the enormous amount of stuff that we have. I mean, we can get things anywhere. We can get fruits at the grocery store year-round. Strawberries year-round. Who would have thunk? Mangoes year-round. We don't care what time it is. We got them because we got huge barges because of technology. We got huge barges and shipping routes and all that thing that makes that stuff possible. Cheaper fuel, more abundant resources and things like that are making, shipping cheaper and easier thing. Okay, great. That's great. Okay, we have more stuff, all right? A huge misconception is that everybody benefits. Now, is it great we have more stuff? Absolutely. But where's that stuff coming from? Okay, well, if we're so globalized and we're a capitalistic world, well, there's always going to be a pool of cheap labor somewhere, right? And so, yes, on one hand, there's many people getting the benefits of the cheap goods and the cheap things that is making our life so lavish and enjoyable, right? It's like a falsehood, like who'd have thunk. On the flip side, you don't know who's making those cheap things and what poor country those goods are being made in. For example, when America becomes addicted on Chinese products and we are the main customer of China, and we see China's environment and it's crap and you can't breathe the air without getting sick or lung cancer, you almost wonder who's to blame. Is it the producer or is it the greedy customer that always wants more and can't get enough and is always cleaning out the shelves? And I don't mean to say that, I mean, hands down, America is the number one. Let's see, is America number one? I believe America is the number one largest emitter of fossil fuels, or maybe China, one or two. Either or, who's to blame for all of China's pollution? Is it the Chinese government for not regulating their economy? Or is it the United States for having these huge firms move in there and take advantage of their lack of environmental protection, cheaper labor? I mean, we don't know who's making those products. Children could be making those products. They could be using chemicals that are not legal here but produce the same effect. We don't know where they're made. And now there's even a whole scheme of things that's called transshipment, which basically means it's a way around what is now the recent trade war tariffs. So companies will make most of the product in China, right? Because it's still economically cheaper. And then they'll ship it to Thailand real quick or ship it to Vietnam or whatever. And they'll splash a quick little label on it, made in Thailand, made in Vietnam, and that's where it's coming from. And it avoids the tariffs. And it's this type of greedy, inherently, I'm trying to think of the word. It's very self-eating. When it eats yourself, it's very it's very self-inflicting harm. It's causing self-inflicting harm to everybody. When China is cheating the system and they're not playing, for example, my whole study is about basically China and the complications of China living in a world that is an international order created, that what is the United States, and the implications of that. Now, because it's the two largest economies and everybody, the whole China is the factory of the world, this is a huge deal with globalization and power struggle and things like that. Most Americans don't even realize that China already controls the Panama Canal and through Cisco. And most Americans don't even understand that China is planning to build a canal right through Nicaragua. Tell me that's not going to affect the globalized order and how things are orchestrated. Now, a whole nother concept and a whole nother pillar of cultural aspect that I want to kind of go into. I don't want to digress. It's such a broad topic. Globalization, to compress it into 7 minutes is nearly impossible, but to go on to the next topic is cultural. You see, once the whole world starts consuming the same products and the same things, right? So people in America were first consuming iPhones and everything into iPhones, right? Well, now poorer countries and developing countries are starting to want to consume the same stuff. Consumerism is taking over. People don't realize how interconnected culture, economics, and politics are all combined. You can't almost even talk about them separately because they're so intertwined. So when people are consuming the same products, you almost get this concept of what's introduced as McWorld, that the whole world is just becoming this homogenous consumption factory, right? Like this organized, consumptious factory, and we're just consuming resources. And my whole idea of globalization and what I want to tie into as a Christian perspective is this whole one world order type thing that we are living in. It's this whole idea that resources are scarce and that we need to surrender our freedoms and surrender our religious beliefs and surrender our liberties and give it into the hands of huge bureaucrats and huge globalized people, right? The government. The government wants everybody to consume less resources. And as good as that sounds, right? Everybody wants to be consumer friendly, right? Of course. It's not, it's a bait and switch, okay? It's a bait and switch. They say, please take, green energy, consume less resources, right? But at the same time, they want to put you in these apartment complexes, okay? The ultimate goal of the whole global order, right, is to reduce human consumption of resources. So how do we do that? Well, we start with China, right? The largest populated place. All they do is build cities. They put people in urbanized areas, right? And it's because of this whole concept that people that live in urbanized areas consume 30 to 35% less energy per person. Well, I have to say, all these crazy people, I have to say on the left, who I'm moderate and I consider myself an independent. I judge people and I vote according to my conscience, but I have to say the Democrats in America have gone off the deep end. When you're talking about restricting all of these things that like cars and this Green New Deal, when our politics have gone so far left that it takes the government to be involved in every aspect of our life, that's when you know what globalization is. It's the systematic decay of human liberties and human rights around the world, actually. America is simply the last obstacle in the way. Americans hiding in their homes with their armory, right? Because Americans are armed. There's a saying in Japan, Hajimemashite, dojo yoroshiku. So there's a saying in Japan, right? When Japan was attacking Pearl Harbor, they first wanted to attack the mainland. The generals, they said, oh, shouldn't we just go right in for the mainland and attack the mainland? And the general said, no. If we go into America and attack the mainland, there will be a gun behind every blade of grass. And it's so funny because they know the Constitution and they know American culture, and it's that Americans love guns, and that if you're going to attack America and come on American soil, we're all armed and we're prepared to defend ourselves for this country. It's a shame of the recent gun violence in America right now. It's horrifying, but it's all part of this globalization and this effort to systematically chip away at human rights all around the world. People are ignorant to China. Look at what China is doing to their citizens, using basically American technology, surveillance systems, right? Artificial intelligence designed and invented, really, it was pioneered, artificial intelligence was pioneered here in America. And China is using that to control their citizens on a level that we have never seen before. And the world should be outraged. Now that's just many, many things of what's going on. We're slowly basically losing our rights because we're giving our decision-making power into the hands of very few. very few bureaucrats, very few corporate elites, very few people. That's what's going on. Other possible externalities. We have terrorism as a threat. I'm going very long right now, but it's a topic I'm really passionate about. So that is basically it for my analysis of what is globalization. Am I a fan of globalization? Yes, I love to travel. I love different cultures. I love learning different languages and everything like that. But I'm a fan of responsible immigration. I'll use America as an example. We are a nation of immigrants. We all came here. I'm obviously from European descent somewhere. I don't know, but we all came here at some point, right? But look, it's 2019. It's about to be 2020. We got trains, planes, and automobiles, right? There is a global line. Because of globalization, actually, America is the #1 most immigrated to country in the world, okay? And yeah, we need law and order, and globalization needs to be regulated, and we should have standards and global standards. Yes, absolutely. While having national sovereignty, we can have globalization, security, and national sovereignty. Absolutely. But it starts with being responsible within our own domestic policies. So I'm going to cut it a little short here. There's so much we can go on to. I mean, I could make this an hour-long video and just continue talking about various implications of globalization. I mean, I'm all about globalization, but just responsible globalization. I mean, there's a global line waiting to get into America. And I think we should respect that. I think the world should respect that. America is a force for good, in my opinion. I think the world would be worse off without America. So I think America is a force for good. And I will say, America and China, you don't need a crystal ball to know that those are going to be the two dominant superpowers in the future. And it's going to be interesting to see how they share the global stage in the future. So thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate the course, the online course. I enjoyed the comparative politics. Yeah, it's a shame I wasn't able to get to San Diego in person and take the class on there, but I'm graduating this semester. Hopefully I'm just gonna finish up my paper, and that's about it. So thank you very much. You have a great rest of your day. I hope you enjoyed my perspective of globalization. It's very complex. It's hard to get into in just a short video. This is way over time, but yes, thank you so much.